You're listening to Wild Things and Wild Places, a Muley Fanatic Foundation podcast that aims to discuss issues and efforts related to the Muley Fanatic Foundation mission, the conservation of mule deer, furthering the sport of hunting, and sound wildlife management.
Everybody knows I'm a Muley Fanatic.
It's time for Wild Things and Wild Places. And here's your guide, Joshua Corsi.
Mule deer traverse from mountains high across the plains beneath the sky. They roam for miles along a trail since those before them did as well. It might just be what they do best, migrating far across the west.
Ah, that is beautiful. And that is a direct excerpt from the Magnificent Mule Deer, that being narrated in the book and in person now by the author, Melody Meadow Lark, also known as Mary Fichtner. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Did you know you were Melody Meadow Lark?
I didn't. I need to take that on better.
Yeah. Also joining us on this podcast, a very special podcast, very excited to be able to present this, is Mary's daughter, Roslan Fichtner as well, who is the illustrator of this great book. Many of you that listen to this have seen the MFF in Action email that came out at the end of November promoting this book, talking about this book. And so I feel very blessed to even have the author and the illustrator in person here in Cheyenne to be able to have this conversation. And let's maybe start at the beginning. The idea behind this book, the motivation, the inspiration. Take it from there, Mary.
I met up with Chris from the Wildlife Fund, and he just felt like there was a lack of a really nice mule deer book for kids, and especially with a Wyoming author and illustrator. So we just talked about the idea, and then we pulled you in, and Wyoming Game and Fish, and just seemed like there was a need for this, that kids could learn about specifically about the mule deer, because as I have learned from writing the book, they are quite magnificent. I really have been impressed with everything that I've learned just writing the book, and it's just been an amazing project.
That's incredible. But I want to preface that this wasn't just, hey, I want to write a book about mule deer. This is what you do. This isn't your first publication, but as an author in other books, how many other books have you?
We have 18, I think, if I'm counting correctly. It's gotten a little out of hand, but we started out with Rusty the ranch horse, which is a horse we owned, and we're both cowgirls, I like to say, and all of our books are Western, obviously, about horses and cowboy ethics and really nice lessons about life. And so we've just done really well with that. And we went into some other characters, which is where the word remuda came from, which means a herd of horses.
Right.
So now we like to say our newest herd member is the mule deer. And it was a little bit out of our wheelhouse, but Roslan is an incredible artist, and she's just absolutely nailed the look of the mule deer. So it's been amazing.
You've done an exceptional job.
Mm-hmm.
I know when throughout 2024 in the various meetings that we had and seeing the illustration drafts that you had put forth to seeing the finished product, it's nothing short of profound. We're very pleased. We're very excited. We're also very humbled by this, that you would tackle this, take this on, particularly with the story that is narrated throughout the book and the challenges that mule deer face, migration, good habitat, good forbs and forage and cover. It's incredible. But then to put that into a children's book, which certainly conservation is littered in education, and it starts early. I think, Mary, I had shared with you a good friend of mine, Andy Elston in Casper. His wife's a librarian, Sarah. She had reached out the year before after I had done a presentation with her class and said, I can't find any books on mule deer. I find a ton on whitetail. And at that time I says, I don't know of any. And she had just tongue-in-cheek had said, well, write one.
That's so
and
funny.
I know my lane, and I'll stay in my lane.
Yeah.
And so when Mick Barnes reached out to me from the Wildlife Fund and gave me this idea, immediately I went to Sarah's conversation about, you guys should have one. And I was like, someone's going to do this.
Yeah.
And we'll do it well. And then to know this wasn't a first shot for you, that you have history in this arena and you've done well within this. I was very excited about it, and I'm even more excited now that we're talking about it. And before we get into any more of the details of the book, though, just to get this out there, these books are soon to be available.
Yes, I have a few copies ordered, and hopefully people will have them in their hands by Christmas, just those few. We really need to look them over, and then we'll be ordering large amounts. They'll be available anytime on our website, which is rustysremuda.com.
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 Let's make sure we get that out there.
Yeah.
And we'll be sure to include a link on this podcast post.
And $5 from every one of the Mule Deer books goes toward your foundation. And we're really excited about that because as we've learned through this process, all the great things that you're doing for mule deer, it matters.
Yeah, thank you for that. The efforts that we take on, particularly with youth events, that's where we would earmark those funds. I know initially, though, there was some talk about the Inspire a Kid initiative with Game and Fish, so funds will be going to that program as well.
Oh, yes.
Okay, because that was a very valuable program that Director Nesvik on his watch initiated, and it has grown, it is well supported, and it's very valuable. I will just tell you, and I don't know the back end of the business and how those arrangements look, but even if $5 off of each one of these book sales never comes to us for our Putting the U in Hunt program, if it's all going to Inspire a Kid initiative, we're totally cool with that. That's a great program. I don't know how those arrangements work with what you have on the business part of the effort, but whatever you decide on that, just know we're supportive. This is a great cause, and it's a great educational tool.
I need to probably say a correction on that because that is what we put on the website.
Inspire a Kid.
Yes,
okay, great.
But also we really haven't talked in great detail yet about exactly those funds. So
wherever it goes,
yes,
it will be good.
It matters. Yeah.
The book is $25. Again, $5 of that going to a program to benefit children in the outdoors.
Yes.
And that was an impetus that you wanted to cover in this. I know in our meetings and email exchange, you were pretty quick to point out that we need to get young children off electronics, get them outside, get them enjoying the wonderful wildlife resources and natural resources that we have. And so that was a big motivator for you in this.
It's my soapbox. And I just feel like electronics are really harming our kids. And they're sitting in beautiful Wyoming in one of the most beautiful places in the U.S.
You live in a playground.
Yes, exactly. And honestly, I have to talk a little bit about one of my sons. All three of them are avid hunters, and my husband too. But one in particular has been very invested in hunting and conservation and really wants to pass this down to his next generation. He has 3 little boys. And he consulted us a lot on the book. He's very knowledgeable about all these things that he's passionate about. And it was fun to be able to say, I need to see if you would want to read this to your boys. And he was a great one to bounce these off of. And of course he does. He wants them outside. It's going to be their life. And then Roslan does all these fun art projects with them, painting and teaching them about the great outdoors and the beautiful things that they can see outside. And it's just so important. We have to get back to these things of reading and art and outside. Yeah. When our kids were growing up, you're having a problem with your kid, send them outside. And even adults, right? The thing. And so it's just been an incredible honor to promote this. And honestly, we both learned so much. Mm-hmm. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I imagine so. I imagine the journey has been very rewarding. It's interesting you say that about when you talk about kids in this 21st century and how different things are. I was just in Riverton last night and had a meeting with a landowner. He and I, my friend Rowdy, we were talking about how it's just so different. One of the things that was brought up is when we were kids, we had play clothes and we had school clothes.
Yep.
Because we were playing outside.
Absolutely.
And Mom wasn't letting you ruin those 2 new pair of pants and 3 shirts you got for the start of the school year.
Sometimes you got locked outside.
Yeah, and God forbid you wore your school shoes to play in, exactly. Or your school pants that you had knees wearing out from football playing in the park and grass stains.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's interesting. But no, I commend the effort. I think it's a tremendous effort. Roslan, specific to the artwork, what is your background?
I do have a degree in actually art education from the University of Wyoming, but all growing up I've always loved art, and that's what led me to that path. it goes hand in hand with wanting to educate kids about, when we started our books, it was out of a passion of keeping the Western culture alive. We started out with horses, like my mom said, and rodeo and ranching, but that also goes hand in hand with conservation and hunting. That's all part of the Western culture as well. And that's what we wanted to start doing with our books. So it's really cool that we got led into this avenue with the mule deer. Just my background on art more specifically, that is the subject of art that I love to do, is Western art. I do a lot of horses and cowboys and cowgirls, but I also do a lot of wildlife. I have art at Cheyenne Frontier Days. Was inspired by this book. I did this huge mule deer painting this year at Cheyenne Frontier Days. I probably could have sold that thing like 200 times.
Really?
Yeah.
But it was just one
was
original mule deer. The mule deer, after doing the book, became one of my new favorite subjects to paint now. Just learning about how amazing they are. I had no idea, actually, before we started doing this book, what all the mule deer does. And now driving around, I always like to spot them outside.
Yeah, it is
cool.
amazing. Once you can get past the idea that it's just a deer,
Yeah.
Yes.
but that deer has an individual story. It has a strong fidelity to its range. There's a reason why they're the icon of the American West.
Yeah,
in my
for
mind.
sure.
I am curious from the artistic perspective of what you have illustrated. Obviously, you just mentioned you had drawn a picture that was featured at Cheyenne Frontier Days last year. But had you had a lot of experience with getting mule deer right? Because a lot of people will see a deer that someone has drawn and be like, is that a whitetail? Is that a mule deer? Is that a hybrid? Very definitive characteristics.
Yeah, when I met with you guys to go over the books, I already knew going into it before the meeting how serious I had to take my accuracy.
No pressure.
Mule deer.
No pressure.
Yeah, and like my mom said, I already knew from my dad and brothers how important it is, the differences and all the different types of wildlife that we have out here. So I knew how accurate I had to be on its antlers, its tail.
It's so funny you
its
say it.
face.
How many drawings I have seen where mule deer have the ears that are very
Yeah.
identifiable features of them.
Yeah.
But then I see a drawing that has a mule deer with a white-tailed rat.
Yeah,
Right,
or
that
even a
was-
white tail.
That
Yeah.
was something I definitely paid attention to. And my subject matter has primarily been horses, probably my number one thing. And horses are hard to do, but I've just been doing them for so long. I've got that down. But now focusing more on wildlife, the mule deer, elk, moose, they're very hard animals to get right because their proportions are just very interestingly different. So different from a horse, for
Right.
sure. And just like their neck and how their head and then their antlers were, the antlers are probably the hardest part for me to get right. I had to redo them several times, but I think I finally maybe got it down.
I'm curious why we're on that conversation. It is a question that I've ruminated on thinking, I need to know, like, what kind of, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Mary, but for your contributions to this book as the illustrator, Roslan, what time investment is into this effort here just in this book?
Oh man, that is a good question. I get asked a lot how long it takes me to do my paintings too, and I need to start setting a timer because I lose track on how long it takes me. But I would say I did all the drawings and sent them over to you guys. I bet each one took me about an hour. And then each painting, depending on how detailed they are, like we're sitting here looking at this one with the mule
aspens
deer
and-
and the aspen trees.
Yeah.
That one took me a little longer.
That's beautiful, by the way.
Probably like 2 hours. The one with the mule deer standing under the stars, that one probably took me a similar amount of
job
time.
on the antlers on that one.
Thank you. I was trying really hard with the antlers, but
And then when
I
you
also-
draw where it's facing forward, where it isn't turned, just
Oh,
the
thank you.
challenge that presents, I would think.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I am very excited about this. It's probably more than obvious. In fact, I'm probably a little giddy about it. But it's because I know how important this is. And I know the value behind this. I know the opportunity that this is going to create to help plant a seed with the next generation of sportsmen, sportswomen, hunters, conservationists. It starts with measures like this, and I think that's very profound. This fills a void, I think, because there isn't this type of level of publication specific to an iconic critter like mule deer. I think there are a lot of books out there about animals, and kids love animals.
For sure. Yeah.
Particularly stuffed animals, but I think it is very much needed, and so I'm giddy about this. This is very cool, and my wife and I are expecting our first grandchild in March, and I cannot, as I indicated earlier in the year in one of our meetings, after we knew this grandchild was coming, I can't even tell you how excited I am to be waiting for what will probably be. I'll be reading it when it's looking at me like, I don't even understand you.
That's okay. You're supposed to.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get to some of the great details in the writing as well. This, again, presented and narrated as you're reading it to be from the thoughts and mind and voice of Melody, I assume. I didn't read between the lines, but that's a state bird for Wyoming.
Yes, exactly. And honestly, Roslan gets all the credit for that. She always does the creativeness of the illustrations. And we were trying to decide how to write it as far as, do we want a mule deer one character type of thing? And my son said probably not the greatest idea. He thought maybe it would be better to have it be about the whole herd, and which when he explained his thoughts on that, I could not have agreed more, and so glad I had consulted him and said, Mom, how about if we have it from the viewpoint of the meadowlark that lives with them and amongst them? And I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, we are so doing that. So there's
real quick before you go on any further, Mary, because you've referenced your son and his inspiration and involvement in this. What's his name?
His name is Rory Fichtner, and we dedicated the book to him. He doesn't even know that yet. But
Rory, I just want to say, nice job, brother.
Yeah, he's our mountain man, we like to say.
No, that's great.
And he's raising 3 miniature mountain men, trust me.
I just find it to be very impressive, the level of being a family project of great value.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
It's remarkable. And we have 5 grandsons right now and another one on the way. So we don't know if that one's a boy, but we provide a lot of boys to the state.
Right.
And they're all going to be little hunters and mountain men, I'm sure, because they're
Good job.
Yeah, their dads are going to want to make sure of it. So, but it's cool because the meadowlark, I think I said that already, but she's on every page. And she's basically singing about the mule deer because she lives with them and knows them just very well. And Roslan, of course, does a perfect little meadowlark also. And it's interesting because our very first book we did, Rusty Under the Western Skies, it was her idea again, Mom, let's put a meadowlark on every page. And the kids love that. They love finding the meadowlark. And she's not hard to find, but it's just fun to see her on every page. And then something a little different we did with this book that we've never done this before, and I think it came off of you guys helping with the thoughts of what you wanted in the book as far as education. So we added this little text box at the bottom that's for a little bit older reader with more detail about specific things about the mule deer.
Let's use this one as an example, Mary.
Yeah.
Read this text from the book from Melody, the meadowlark, and then we'll read this so our listeners can, or if you have a different one you want to read.
I'll do this one. So the rhyming part is, mule deers have excellent sight to graze under stars all through the night. Their noses also work so well when you're around, they can tell. It makes them hard to sneak up on. When they smell you, they'll be gone. You can try to hide your scent. Keep it a secret where you went. So that's the rhyming part for the younger kids. And then in the text box, we have the strong eyesight of the mule deer helps them graze at night to avoid predators. One of the strongest senses of the mule deer is their scent. They can smell you from up to a half a mile away, and their scent is 1,000 times stronger than a human, similar to a dog.
Wow. See, again, I love what you have done here. On the storyboard itself, as someone who has had several other books published prior to taking on this project, do you build the storyboard first with how you want to start, the middle, the ending, take that, then share it with Roslan, and then you incorporate your visual and your artistic skill set?
Yeah, that's 100% how we do it. This one, again, was a little different, but the same. I actually talked to Rory and asked him to give me some highlights about the mule deer that he loves, and he said, I don't know how you're going to incorporate like some of the challenges and have it really be a kid's book. But I said, hey, that's what I do. I do kids speak. And so we got all that in there really good, I think, on how sometimes they struggle with eating if it's been a drought and things like that, how sometimes they are not warm enough, even though they have a beautiful fur coat.
And that's how you incorporated the challenges that we provided, and migration being a huge one.
Yes.
Because it's a staple effort on our part with wildlife crossings and connectivity and the importance of maintaining the summer and winter range connection. How you put that in there, when I first, the draft, I was so freaking excited. How do you tell that story without it?
It's so true, Josh. Like I decided, you know what, I'm not going to rhyme this one. This is going to be more educational. And I don't even know if I told you this, but I wrote the whole book and I read it and I'm like, this is boring.
Really? No, you didn't share
because
that.
I love rhyming. Kids need it. It's essential to their learning, but they also remember it. It's like a song, and they may remember one verse just about how the mule, their noses also work so well. When you're around, they can tell. And it's sin better, you know what I mean?
Right.
And just stuff like that. But back to your question, so I just took those main points, the amazing things about the mule deer, and I wrote a page for each actual attribute or something that mattered about them, and then I just wrote out the rhymes. And I think Roslan gets...
What kind of time did you have into that?
It's interesting because I found with myself, if I'm like, okay, this is going to happen, I got to sit down and write this. And I can fight it and I get nowhere in 2 hours. But when it hits me, I'll tell you what, I'll be driving down the road and I've learned I just grab my phone, I start rhyming into my phone. And then it's pretty fast.
Okay.
But I think overall, I don't remember when we started talking to you guys, but I think it's been 9 months.
Yeah, it's been a significant portion of the year.
And it's like a couple hours a day for not every day probably, but several a week. And then once it's written, I do tons of editing, tons. And it's every day.
I was trying to imagine that when you see someone who has talent like this, you can't help but think about what got them to this point. And I started thinking about the rhyming aspect. You end on this word, and then you start going through the various synonyms to what other words mean the same thing that might rhyme better. And I was just like, you've been given a gift.
Well,
been given a gift, for sure.
One other important thing that I want to address with our process too is that we have no AI help with our books.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. It's taking over.
A thing. Mm-hmm. It is taking over. When we submit our books to the publisher, we make sure, it was really important to us that they were printed in America, and they are, our books are. And when we submit them, they always ask us, is anything generated with AI on our books? So we're really proud of not only the fact my mom's talent with writing for children, but also hand-painted illustrations. That's also become a rare thing. Yep. Most of them are computer-generated. And so just how much time we both took sitting down, writing and painting and creating the books. We also love that aspect of what we do.
Yeah.
That we
Roslan,
feel like it sets
I'm so
us
glad
apart.
you touched on this.
Oh my gosh, me too, Roslan. That's absolutely.
Thank you.
Are important.
We've made a promise to our fans and readers that we will never use AI. Because one thing about AI, I do see benefits here and there, but you can't write from your heart if you're using AI. And everything we do is from our heart. Yeah. This is stuff that we feel, that we believe in. If you had come to us with some weird book idea, we're not going to do it. Right. You know what I mean? It has to be something that we can get 100%. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to turn out good.
Yeah, and how you said core values, it goes back to us caring about tradition and way of life, heritage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I love that it's all printed in the great U.S. of A.
Yes, absolutely.
That's huge, right?
Yeah, that was never in question. And I know there's other authors, and we're all different. Some have chosen to print in other countries, and they don't have to charge as much for their books. But we've never had any pushback on our cost, and I'm going to stand by, continuing to support our country. And
well, I'll stand with you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I just want to go back really quick. poor Roslan's been maybe a little frustrated with me at times because I do switch the page order around sometimes.
And I lose track.
Yeah, and she's like, wait, Mom, isn't that page 10?
Yeah, I
And
didn't
I'm
even
like,
think about that.
I didn't tell you, but I made that 5. Because
Yeah, that happens a lot.
It seems like it does happen a lot. It seems like a better flow to me, whatever, and she's
But
whatever.
she didn't clarify that to me or something, and it happened in this book with one of the pages.
Yes, it did.
Because I always text her a picture of it. Oh, here's page 6, and she goes, "No, I think you're confused. That's page 10." And I was like, "No, Mom, I'm looking at what you sent me. This is page 6." And she goes, "Oh, I think I forgot to send you the updated version. That's actually page 10 now."
A little freedom there on your part as
Yeah,
the
that's
author.
true.
Yeah, but I just let her go. I give her the words, and I think we've talked about this before. There's maybe been one time out of 18 books, now 19, that I've said, oh, maybe let's redo that one.
Really?
She literally just, I guess it's just that mother-daughter connection.
You'd expect it then.
Yeah. I was just going to say, she's always been my biggest fan.
Yeah,
No.
She always likes what I do.
look at it. It's
Well,
like,
that's another story behind the story that I think is cool. Like, how great is this opportunity that you get to collaborate on this
it's
project
amazing.
together?
It's amazing.
It's so fun to do it together.
And then for you to indicate already just what you learned going into this that you didn't have prior.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's the whole point of this.
Absolutely. And it's cool telling people too. I feel like our books come up in conversation a lot with people that we know. And it's been so fun telling people about the opportunity we've had with you guys and with the Wyoming Game and Fish. And I say we're doing the mule deer. People don't generally know a whole lot about the mule deer.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's been super fun actually to teach people that I know what I learned about them, because people usually don't know unless you're in it, in the conservation and in the hunting. You don't know a whole lot about them. So it's been fun to teach people.
I can tell you, prior to us hitting record to begin this podcast, I had given you both a challenge coin, and we don't do that often. But the reason you were presented that challenge coin is because of your efforts to talk and do great things for mule deer. You're doing that. You're an ambassador now for mule deer in this effort. And for us, that needs acknowledged because it is a very small percentage of people that put priority to this. With a concentrated effort like this, certainly. I'm very glad that you received the challenge coin. And
Thank you.
and
We
now
are so
understand
excited.
the value behind that, because it's a pledge. It's a commitment that we're going to do good things for mule deer. And on the book specifically, that was another question I wanted to get to. Like, how do you know from an author's perspective you have this build-up or effort to get to something, and then you have to have a close? And how did you do that? I'm real curious how that thought process looked.
Yeah, that's always maybe that's the hardest page, honestly. I've never had anybody ask me that before, but I do know what I strive to do is bring the whole message together, a summary of what we're doing here.
Right.
And so I know the last page in this one was about how we can help the mule deer, all of us in the state of Wyoming.
Let's read that.
Yeah,
Because
even
I think...
yeah, even non-hunters. Yes, it's so true. And I always try to pull in a little bit of Wyoming. And so, of course, I have to talk about grit because
we got grit.
we got grit, baby.
You got to live. You got to live with grit if you live in Wyoming.
Yeah,
right?
you really do.
Don't quit. Just a little more grit.
Yes, I love that. So here's the last page. I don't have the text box, but you'll have to read the book.
There you go.
Anyway, here's the rhyming. As I fly and watch them move, true grit and spirit muley prove. Hunting helps mule deer along, making sure the herds stay strong. They need some help from those who care about the land they have to share. I hope you'll venture where we are and find a mule deer superstar.
And that was something we had conversation about in our efforts earlier in the year to work on this with you. Was we can't make this book a critter that just needs to be protected and preserved, that the hunting aspect of what we have for healthy animal populations on the landscape is because of the tools in place of hunting.
Yeah, and I think that's
hunter support.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest messages that people need to learn, that I needed to learn years and years ago. But hunters are the biggest conservationists there is.
Yeah.
It's very important. And for people to just judge it without learning about why it's needed and why it works.
I will tell you, I had some reservations on how to have that approach in one of our very first early on meetings. Was I knew the book would have great potential and be just something that would be well received because there's that void within that area. But I was wondering what your reception might be of us wanting to say, hey, let's not just glorify this great iconic species and make it so wonderful and magical and mystical, but miss the idea of we have that because we manage it, and hunting is a part of that toolbox.
And I have to give so much credit again to Rory he's really been such a huge advocate to our family and teaching us girls, I guess, because we love the guys going hunting, but we've just never been interested in participating in it. We love looking at the wildlife, and they do their thing. And going back to the original thought too, and now I'll just say it, but it's funny, I started out with, Rory, we could have a mule deer and we could name him. And he was immediately like, no, we can't, Mom. Yeah. Because we don't want a Bambi situation.
And I didn't want to say it, but that's exactly what I was going.
And so honest to goodness, that's who kibosh on that. And like I said, I'm so grateful because I'm not a hunter.
2 pounds,
yes.
two fist bumps, Rory.
Yes, exactly. Oh, he killed it. And that's when we decided it would still be fun to have a little character. And that's when Roslan came up with the meadow lark and it being our state bird and so forth, because it is so important to manage the herds. And Rory mentioned just looking at the mule deer as more of a herd, a group. And so that's what we went for. Yeah.
Again, the story behind the story.
Amazing, right?
I love it.
And I just have to tell you, too, I pre-sold some of the books at a show in Douglas, the Cowboy Christmas, and I met a lady that said she has mule deer that come to her yard every year around Thanksgiving, and she just loves looking at them. She's not a hunter, but she just loves watching them. And
hopefully not feeding them.
Not feeding them, exactly.
I did learn that.
Yes, it's pretty hard to resist feeding them, I'm sure, but I did learn we do not do that. But she told me the most interesting story. She said one year a little baby showed up, a little with its leg ripped off. And she was just heart-stricken. Oh, no, it's not going to make it. And sure enough, next year that same baby came back and was a mama.
Wow.
On
pretty resilient.
3.5 legs. Yeah. And then back again the second year.
There's your next book, Tripod.
You know what? Seriously, I just thought, wow.
Yeah.
And she's
then you're naming the deer, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we got to be careful there. But I just loved what you said about their resilience and their spirit and their grit. And
they have it, which is what is so alarming about this iconic species that, has declined 40% over the last 3 decades in the United States. I mean, when you look at those numbers, that's significant. Anything else you would think that was declining at that alarming rate, that there would be so much more that's being done. And it's not that I don't believe a lot is being done, because there is. It's just so complicated that there's not a silver bullet. There's not a fix-all to the problem. There are so many factors because of their vulnerabilities: degradation of habitat, encroachment, disease, predation, competition on the landscape with feral horses, with robust elk populations. There are so many factors, and it's a death by 1,000 cuts. When you look at that decline over 3 decades being almost half, it didn't happen in 1 year or the winter of 22-23. It's been this steady trajectory that has put us where we're at. But it's efforts like this. I will tell you, you may not realize this, but it is efforts like this that will inspire so many other good things that will come for mule deer, because this reaches somebody. And I do believe, especially as a man of faith, like when that seed is planted, it'll get watered and it will produce and it will have harvest. And you don't know what implications this will have, but just know that they're profound.
I just can't say enough what an honor it's been to be a part of this. Yeah. It's changed so much of what we feel like we can do. And again, Roslan said this earlier, but our whole thing is keeping the Western culture alive. And we just never went into this area of the Western culture yet, but it's a huge part of it.
And if that's the aim, and a valiant aim at that, how do you do that? You have to have leaders. You have to have forward thinkers. You have to have people that are willing to step out of their comfort zone and to make awareness to others about the importance and significance of this. And so you're doing that. You're leaders, and I'm glad to be associated with you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been so much fun to work with you guys.
Roslan, I'm curious on the colors. just the effort to not just correctly capture the physique and the physical presence of the subject, the mule deer and the meadowlark, but like the backdrop, where does that come from?
Oh, I have always said that I think it comes from our amazing landscape in Wyoming. I love the saying that everyone can love the mountains, but not everyone loves the prairie. Growing up, we always had the best sunsets, I swear, ever out on the prairie. I just moved back from a very mountainous town, and the mountains are so beautiful, but I really miss the sunsets and the sunrises because you just don't get to see them there. So I've always said that was a big part of my inspiration because I love using so many colors in my artwork. That's my signature, is using all the colors.
And Wyoming really is
a
canvas of art.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's so beautiful. I
Right?
love.
From the high desert,
Yeah.
and when you have those spring blooms,
Yeah.
you talk about a palette of colors.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, and certainly the sunset on the cover of the book depicts
Thank you.
that very good.
Thank you.
We had some fun just giving our family members native names, and we call her Sky Painter.
Legend Doctor.
Yes.
Sky Painter and Legend
Yes.
Doctor.
And,
Native
That's
names.
pretty
I love
cool.
it.
and we have
What's Rory's?
we have a token native
He's Elk
daughter-in-law.
Dog.
Yes, and Rory's Elk Dog. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've had so much fun with that, and so now we just call her Sky Painter because
I can tell you because my wife she just loves Native American lore.
me too. Yes, we do too.
I imagine that when she hears this, she'll implement a native name, and I don't know.
You
Find
gotta
out.
earn those names.
Yeah,
right?
that's
so
right.
we really started with Rory's. My husband and I saw it somewhere, and we're like, "Oh, that's Rory's name."
Elk Dog.
Elk Dog.
Oh, that's cool. Roslan, the artwork within the book, in addition to the book being sold, individual pieces of each page or a spread, like the page on migration,
Yeah.
those are available for sale?
Yes, yeah. Sell all of my originals from all the books that we do. And so, yes, currently the mule deer book illustrations are for sale, the originals. I also do prints of them.
We may not want to be talking about this. This should have maybe been optional. So the original artwork,
Yeah.
the actual piece, not a duplicate, not a
Yep.
copy.
Exactly.
The original
The only
pieces
one.
are for sale. And how many are there total?
How many pages?
There's 12, but
But
the
as
text
you said,
pages.
there's one's a spread with the migration, so
Yeah.
13 that you could purchase.
Only one person could
Yeah,
once
only
it's gone.
One person has, yeah. And I used to sell prints of my illustrations as well, but slowly as we've become more and more popular, I have been going away from that and just doing the originals in the last couple of years. So,
Okay.
because it makes them more special.
All right,
too.
so how much are those?
I sell the covers for $125 and then the pages for $95.
Okay, but it's only those 13. Once one person buys 7, it's gone.
Yep, they're gone.
Okay, so Muley Fanatic Foundation would like to buy all of
Oh my
those
gosh.
originals.
That is
So
so
we have each one of them, have you sign them,
Okay.
and then we will, through our host of events, the suite of events that we have with the chapters and headquarters, we will use those original pieces in a live or silent auction
my
that
gosh,
any
that's
funds
so
that
cool.
they generate would go back to our putting the UN Hunt, the opportunity for youth with terminal illness or life-threatening illness.
Wow, thank you so much.
I'm so glad Chris McBarnes or Nish or anyone at Game and Fish got to get ahead of me on
They
that.
didn't know about
Yeah.
it. They didn't know.
So,
Wow, thank you so much. That's so exciting.
yeah,
And
no, we
going to that
absolutely.
effort is pretty amazing that I
What
get
an
to
honor.
contribute to. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got a good locally owned business. We like locally owned businesses.
Of course.
We have a good business that does framing. We'll use them at events to generate funds for this special program with kids.
Oh my gosh, thank
that's
you.
amazing.
Yeah, no,
I'm so
thank you.
excited.
I'm so glad that we got in on this. 'Cause I guess at first when you had mentioned that you sell them, I was thinking certainly nobody would sell their original, and that these would be scanned copies, or I know there's a lot of artwork that does that. You see one
Yeah.
of 50, but the original is always sacred. So you can have one of 50, but even one isn't the original. It's
Yeah,
one of
that's
50
true.
copies.
So true.
Wow, that's
and
so
and just
cool.
so you
Thank
know,
you.
Josh, these are hard to let go of. If I didn't have an entire collection. She's finally been like, Mom, we got to sell these. I have to sell these. Okay. Trust me, it's hard to let them go.
We got into this part of the conversation.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
And I will stay in touch with you with each piece, when it sells, how much it sold for contribution to the Youth with Terminal Illness account, because
oh my gosh, yeah. That's exciting.
that impact of what that is going to make, again, why you have a challenge going.
That is
Great
so
ambassador.
exciting.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think it's extremely cool. Wow. And I hope others find it to be cool. I hope others have found this conversation and the story behind the story to be of great value and worth. Mary, again, I'm struck by when you had indicated like you want kids to get off electronics and spend more time outside. All kinds of great character building, I believe, occurs outside.
Yes.
And this book and how it can play a part of that. I can think of so many thoughts on how this isn't just a one and done, read it to your child once, be able to go back to it, use the information when you're driving on family trips, use the book itself, count how many meadowlarks there are, where they're at. It's like, where's Waldo when you're reading this book? Like, you could do so much with this and plant such an incredible seed for the future. This is epic.
Oh, thank you so much, Josh. Yeah.
What else haven't we covered? What else do we need to know about this book? Again, let's talk about how folks get it, that they're $25. $5 goes to Inspire a Kid initiative with Wyoming Game and Fish. A tremendous program. Let's just make sure we cover that so folks can get it. Because by now I would think there are people like, okay, I'm ready. I want it.
I'm ready to get the book.
Yeah.
I'm sad because I can't obviously get them to people by Christmas anymore, but they'll have them by January from our website, Rusty's Remuda.
Remuda.
Yes.
Rusty's Remuda.
It's a Spanish word for herd. I maybe shouldn't have used that, but the mule deer is the newest member of the herd. We like to say.
When I seen your email and I seen Rusty's Remuda, I'll be frank. I went to Google. I didn't go to AI.
That's okay.
But I went to Google. I was like,
that's okay.
Remuda meeting, and then I think it was said something to the effect of saddle broken horses in a herd that ranch hands would select the daily drive.
100%. Yeah. And it was in a lot of Old West books, but bringing it back. So it's Rusty's Remuda. That's the website, rustysremuda.com. Mm-hmm. Roslan has a separate website for her art. It's on the Rusty's Remuda website. If you go to her story, you can click on her website.
Is it my Etsy? Is that
yes.
Etsy too? Okay.
Etsy account?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my Etsy doesn't have all of my artwork on there, so I always tell people if they have one in mind, you can message me.
What's the best way to reach you or to be able to find your work on a platform like Etsy? Just search Roslan's
Just search
art?
my name. I go by Roslan Fichtner Fine Art, and I'm also on Instagram as well. Those are Etsy and Instagram are the two best ways to find me and my artwork.
Okay.
Just my first and last name, and then Fine Art.
Yeah, and like I said, we've got a link to her stuff on Rusty's Remuda.
Yeah, it's probably the easiest.
Yeah.
Rusty'sRemuda.com. Remember that. You can find the book.
Yes, and always message us if you can't find things or whatever. And I guess I just want people to know that we always have our heart and soul in all of our things.
Very evident.
Yeah, we don't do things that we
don't believe in.
No, I have tons of people all the time coming to me with story ideas, and I'm polite, I enjoy them, I like to get them, but it has to be from inside of me that I want to do it.
That's where the best product is.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, Rusty's.com. There are 18 other books available as well. And if you enjoy Western lore and heritage and cowboy and cowgirls and anything associated with ranch life and horses, look at those other books. But this one's unique. I will say this is very special. Very excited that we had this conversation. Thank you both. I really do love the idea of having the originals that we can make available at various fundraising events moving forward.
Oh, yes, I'm very excited.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that you're going to hear this podcast here before the end of this year in 2024. But Roslan and Mary will both be at Mule Deer Days, March 21, 22, and 23. That's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Sweetwater County Events Complex in Rock Springs, the third annual Mule Deer Days. So we'll have both them there. We'll have books on hand to be available to get personalized from the author and illustrator. We're going to work with Sweetwater County School District number 2 in Green River for that Friday morning before Mule Deer Day starts at noon to get you into a couple classes, to be able to talk to some kids, read the book. And then hopefully parents will come out to Mule Deer Days and meet you again and say, thank you. Gosh, my kid can't quit talking about mule deer.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, they always love Roslan at the schools, so I'm always thankful when I can bring her because a lot of times she'll do a little quick class on maybe she'll teach them how to draw a mule deer head.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, because there are a ton of pictures of deer.
Can teach them about the
99% of them are-
antlers.
Yeah. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'm awestruck over the idea that the actual original pieces of art for what I believe to just be a stellar success for you with this book and its efforts, that we get to pay it forward with our youth hunts. That's going to be very cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you.
All right, rustysremuda.com. Mary Roslan, thank you very much, and it's very fitting for me to tell you this. Happy trails.
And that wraps up another episode of Wild Things and Wild Places. But remember, the journey doesn't end here. Make sure you never miss out by subscribing. Whether you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, streaming us on our website, or following us on social media, subscribing is the best way to stay connected. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more wild episodes.
Everybody knows I'm a muley fanatic.